channel. My name is Johnson. So today I would like to talk about some of the things to consider when securing accommodation in the teaching hospital. Now this video might really not be so helpful to those outside my school, that is the University of Jos. However, if you have your friends and loved ones that are medical students and they are in the University of Jos, you could also send it to them. Please don't forget to subscribe, like, drop your comment in the comment section below, and don't forget to turn on the notification bell so that you keep getting content. Thank you. So today I would like to talk about some of the things to consider when securing accommodation in the teaching hospital. Some of the things to consider: we have the price. Different houses or accommodation here have different price tags depending on what you want and what you can afford. Okay, so and also we have the basic amenities. If you're looking for a house, you need to know the basic amenities within that or in that very house, which is light and potable water. Then the third one, we have the location. Now this is very important. You will want a place that is a bit closer to the class area because of so many reasons, which I would mention them as I go on with the video. Then lastly, you also want to look at the nature of accommodation, what you want, depending on how much or depending on how you could afford it. Okay, so let's go with let's start with the hostel accommodation. Now, the Jos University Teaching Hospital has two sides. We have the permanent side and the temporary side, and there are hostels in both of the hospitals. That's both the permanent and temporary. And students, medical students, also stay in these two hostels. So I would want to state some of the pros and cons of staying in these hostels. So first, we'll start with the hostel at the temporary site, which is located in the town. Okay, so we have in the town we have the Richard or Bank Road. The Richard or Bank Road is located around the old site, which is around terminal site for those that are conversant or knows Jos well. So what are the pros of staying at Richard or Bank Road? One, we have is relatively cheap. The price tag should be around 25 to 35,000 naira thereabout, and students stay there. It's a hostel where you get basic amenities, that's light and water, and also a bit of social amenities. There's a volleyball court, there's a gym, there's also a social center where you could go watch footballs and other stuff like that. The distance between the old teaching hospital to the class area, which is located at the new teaching hospital, it's a bit far. And when I mean a bit far, you would have to spend like almost 150 to 200 naira to get to the teaching to the class area, which is really something you should consider when staying in that place. Then the second one, we have the medical hostel, which is at the permanent site, that is inside the new Jos University Teaching Hospital. There are hostels there, and I also want to state the pros and cons of the hostel in the permanent site. So first we have basic amenities of this constant light, and there's also constant water supply, which is very, very important, which are some of the key things you should consider, especially if you want to stay in the hostel. And it is also close to class area. It's just a stone throw from your hostel to the class area. Just few steps, you are already in the class. That's one of the advantage of the hostel in the permanent site, that is the new Jos University Teaching Hospital, located in Lamingo. The old one is located in Terminus. There are few advantages staying at the medical hostel, that's the one in Lamingo. You will have a bed, you will have an AC, you will have a fridge in your room, and also the room is fully furnished. What are some of the cons staying in the medical hostel. One, it is quite expensive, and that it range around 114,000 naira, and you'll be two in a room, so each of you would pay the same amount, which is 118,000 naira. Your roommate also pays the same amount, and although the room is it's big and quite well furnished, so you would want to consider that when moving in. If you are that kind of person that wants to stay alone, you most likely might not like this hostel, although a lot of students do not like the hostel too for that reason. And so there are fewer people, especially for the boys hostel, there are fewer people staying in the hostel, so you could be lucky to be assigned a single room, just you alone. But have this at the back of your mind that the room is meant for two persons. Then also, one of the disadvantages of staying in that same hostel is there are no shops close where you could get your groceries or other things. So you have to go to as far as either gate 4 or go inside the hospital to get whatever you want to get, especially towards evening time. The place is a bit boring. So if you're that kind of person that wants a happening place, you might most likely not like the hostel, because everybody's on its own, and it's just the hostel is quite isolated around the class area, where at the end of classes, at the end of school, you don't get to see so many people, and the place is quiet and boring most times. So that is all for the hostel. So now let's talk about other accommodation options that we have aside from the hostel. So in Lamingo, that's where the permanent site is located. We have different places where students stay. So we have student in gate 1, student in gate 2, and student in gate 4. Now if you notice, I didn't mention gate 3 because gate 3, no students don't stay in gate 3. It's usually the locals. Let's start with gate 1. What are some of the pros and cons of gate 1? So the first, we have gate 1. Houses around gate 1 are relatively cheap. You could get a house, you could secure a house from, let's say, 30,000 and above, 30 to 100,000 to even 120, depending on what you want and the nature of accommodation you want. Okay, so houses in gate 1 are relatively cheap. Then secondly, gate 1 is in a residential area where there are family people, there are churches, shops. It's actually a happening area. So if you're that kind of person that love a place that is not boring, I think you will want to consider that. However, gate 1 is a bit far from school, and when I say a bit far from school, you would need to spend a bit of transport to school. So let's say in a day you spend 100 naira going and 100 naira coming. That's 200 naira. What most students do, or most guys do around this place, is they cycle. So you could get a bicycle and you cycle to school, which might help ease some of the expenses of transportation. Then secondly, the light here is pretty good. It's not always steady. Now there's a reason why I said always steady. Even though the light is good, it's not 24 hours as gate 4, which I would later talk about. Let's go to gate 2. What are some of the pros and cons of gate 2? So in gate 2, it's actually a residential area, but it's not as lively as gate 1 is, quite. So it's also closer to school. You don't need to spend money coming to school. I mean, you could just walk it. It's a stone throw from gate 2 to the class area. However, it has its own peculiar challenges too, which is one of it is the network there is not too good, especially if you're someone that uses MTN. Right, the network there is not really too good. Then secondly, they have challenges of stores where you could go and buy foodstuff, buy groceries. I think they have little or fewer stores there, so it's a bit of so sometimes it's usually challenging for students getting or going to buy something. They have to come over to that gate 1 to get those things, which is really not too good. Houses around those places are pretty cheap too. You can get houses from 60, 70, 80, 100. It's also pretty decent. So the light there is also quite decent. So let's talk about gate 4, the pros and cons of gate 4. One, we have, it is a student area. So if you're that kind of person that do not want so much noise, you would want to consider gate 4. Then secondly, it has 24 hours light. So it's a place where there's steady supply of light. So, and then also there are decent houses there. If you want to stay in gate 4, there are different decent houses. There are also shops where you could buy some things. However, it is a bit far from school too, so you can also walk it actually, but then it's not as close as gate 2. Then secondly, houses there are very expensive. You could get a house from 100, 150 and above, so it's not as cheaper as other places. This is where houses are the most expensive. So that will be all for today. Please, if you have any comments or questions, you could drop it in the